Where should Superman go next? Time of filming this, we're not even a month out from James Gunn's Superman, but it seems like the gears are already turning for there to be a sequel. So today, I'm going to talk about 5 things I don't want to see from a Superman sequel, and 5 things I do want to see from a Superman sequel, including who I think the villain should be. So let's get to it. Starting off with the first thing I don't want to see. I don't want to see Lex Luthor as the villain again. And I know this is unlikely, but at the same time, I can foresee a world where Lex Luthor is again pulling the strings, trying to tear Superman down, but he has a totally different scheme and totally different villains that he's working with. So the movie would feel different, I guess, but I don't want that. Now, if they want to have him as a cameo, have him in jail or somewhere else because he inevitably is going to buy his way out of jail and he's scheming, trying to come up with something else, I think that's fine. The first thing I do want to see is Lois becoming pregnant or maybe even giving birth at the end of the film. The reason I want to see this is actually for future films that come after this. For anyone who has read the comics, you'll know that Lois and Clark do have a kid named Jon. And I personally love these comics. I think getting to see Superman in the context of a whole family is really interesting and really heartwarming. And I think especially with the way Superman was portrayed in the original film, I think it would work really well in this series. The next thing I don't want to see is too many Justice League appearances. I actually think the way that they handled those other characters in the original film was really good. They were there, they felt like they were incorporated fairly naturally, they were fun to watch, but it was still very much a Superman film. I would like to see that again. What I don't want to see them do is go over the top with that. This film is going to come further down the line in James Gunn's universe, so by the time this comes out, we're probably going to have met a number of other superheroes. And I just don't want those superheroes to be shoehorned into the next Superman film. The next thing I do want to see is them keeping up the comic book feel and bringing in some fun kind of quirky characters. The first film was not afraid to do this at all. I mean, they had that kaiju who started off really tiny and grew up really big and started tearing apart Metropolis. I thought that was really fun. I want to see elements like that again in the film. And if I'm being really hopeful, I'd like to see Mr. Mxyzptlk make appearance. For those of you who don't know Mr. Mxyzptlk, he's this interdimensional being who, well, he often is portrayed as him kind of teasing or bullying Superman in a way that's usually not too serious, a way that's a little bit more comical. And I think he would actually fit really well into this universe, so fingers crossed we get to see him. The next thing I don't want to see is them backpedaling on the issues with Superman's parents. In the first film, we saw that Superman's Kryptonian parents, well, they had some not so great plans for Superman once he arrived on Earth. And I actually don't like that change. I kind of wish they didn't do that. But now that they've made that change, they better stick to it. I don't want them to kind of retroactively make it, something like, oh, Lex Luthor did actually somehow manipulate the video. No, they've made their choice now. Let's stick to it. It's not my favorite, but we're committed. The next thing I do want to see is some sort of acknowledgement of the fallout from Lex Luthor and his plan. Obviously, a lot of what he was doing was put back together by Mr. Terrific at the end, although as we saw in the end credits scene, he didn't do the best job with that. And I do still imagine there's a fair bit of rebuilding to be done in Metropolis, and I'm sure people would be talking about what happened.
Oh no!
City.
It's broken!
And I think it would also be interesting to see where are people's trusts with Superman. In the first film, it was torn apart for a good bit of the film, and it does seem like that was starting to be mended by the end. But I have to imagine there are some people who are still skeptical of who he is and what he's really here for. And I think it would be interesting to see those elements still present in the new film. I don't want General Zod to be the villain. I like him as a villain. I think he's really interesting and adds some really nice elements to the Superman mythos. But he was the villain in Man of Steel, which was, a little over 10 years ago, and I actually thought he was portrayed pretty well in that film. So I don't have a strong itch for him to be in a live action film again.
It's been done.
I'd rather see someone else get the spotlight instead.
I will find him!
I want to see more of Clark Kent being Clark Kent. The first film we saw him being Superman a lot of the time, which, yeah, makes sense. The film was called Superman. But I think Clark Kent himself is an interesting character. Getting to see him be a journalist, getting to see him interact with the world when he's not in costume, I think is really fun, and I want to see more of that. The final thing I don't want to see from this film is any sort of hint of Superman becoming evil. We've seen this story done before. It's interesting. I really like some of the stories where Superman turns evil. Injustice Gods Among Us? Fantastic. I absolutely love it. I don't want to see it again though. I've seen Superman be evil enough times now. It's been done, doesn't need to be done again. And honestly, with how well they portrayed Superman as a beacon of hope in the first film, I don't want them to undo that at all. So I want Superman to be good, good, good. No sense of evil at all in this film, not even maybe setting up a future evil Superman storyline. I want Superman just to be pure good in this franchise. And the final thing I do want to see is my pick for the villain, Brainiac. For those of you who don't know, Brainiac has been portrayed in a lot of different ways, but at his very base is an alien body who was on a quest for knowledge around the universe and goes about obtaining that knowledge in some less than kind ways. Including destroying entire planets and putting cities into bottles, including Kandor, which was from Krypton. So, why do I think Brainiac would be a good villain for this film? First of all, I would like this version of Brainiac to actually have Kandor in a bottle and have a good bit of knowledge about Krypton. There could be some really interesting interplay between Superman and Brainiac because I'm sure Superman still wants to know more about the planet that he came from, and Brainiac has that knowledge, but he obtained it in a really evil, unethical way. So there could be some really interesting dynamics there. But I'm not done yet because I have yet another reason. I think that Brainiac could team up very nicely with another villain, Parasite. Basically, Parasite's whole shtick is that they can steal superpowers from other beings.
Uh-huh!
Hello.
All right, pal. Where'd you get your
Superpower.
I nicked it when you let your guard down for that split second. And I'd do it again. Goodbye.
And even though I'm not super familiar with it, I understand that in some versions, they can also steal knowledge from other beings. Knowledge. Brainiac. There's some opportunities there. I can even see a movie where Parasite steals some superpowers from Superman and then goes back to Brainiac so that those powers can be studied, and then Brainiac can learn how to take down Superman. But what is Brainiac's plan? I say keep it simple. Make it so that Brainiac is trying to steal Metropolis and put it into a bottle, just like he did with Kandor from Krypton. It's a simple plot, but it gets the point across and lets us explore all of those other cool things I just talked about. So there you have it, 5 things I don't want to see from the Superman sequel, 5 things I do want to see from the Superman sequel. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I somewhere in the middle? I want to hear from you one way or the other, and I'll see you next time.